Hello, it's David Kirst. I'd like to call to order a special meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Village of Southampton. It is 4:15 on April 27th. The first order of business is to appoint an acting chairperson. So is anybody on the board, please feel free to make any suggestions or volunteer yourself to act as the acting chairperson, and we can begin with that.
I'd be glad to volunteer, but it's up to the others. They have to decide if they want.
Right, they have to vote, correct.
Yeah.
So Kevin, you wanted to take it, didn't you?
Yeah, I'll take it, but it's up to all you guys, you know. I'll be glad to.
I'm good with Kevin.
There you go. I have good support here.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
I have one
That's
question.
fine with me.
Where can I get a haircut?
I got a pair of scissors.
So my wife already did that. I gotta fix that.
Okay, so let's take an official vote on the chairperson, naming an acting chairperson.
I vote aye for Kevin.
I'll second.
I guess all in favor is me.
Julia?
I'm in
Aye.
favor.
Fine.
Okay.
Can I vote for myself too? I'll say aye.
Well, at least it's unanimous.
Right.
I do not have video on Julia. Does everybody else?
I don't have it either, no.
Julia,
Neither
I
do I.
might want it off. Do you want me to put you on?
It's fine.
Okay, I'm putting you on right now. Okay, it's going to ask you, Julia. You just have to approve it.
Okay. Done.
Okay.
Oh, hi.
Hi,
Great.
all.
Oh,
Oh, there you are.
okay.
Seen these people in a while. We have to approve the minutes, right? On February 27th, 2020.
Correct.
I move that we approve the minutes of February 27th, 2020.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Then we have 5 pending decisions, right?
Correct.
3045, which is the Trust Foundation, excuse me, which is the Joyce Trust, 765 Hill Street.
Okay, and Antoinette, if you can invite John Bennett in as a participant.
He's in.
He's in?
Yep. John, can I open your video?
I'm here.
I'm going to try.
There he is. I don't see his face, but see his name.
I asked him to John, there he is.
There he is.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you and see you.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Oh, John. He hasn't changed.
Pretty strange times, huh? Thanks for setting this all up this way.
I'd like to say no problem, but the technical difficulties are, we're getting through them. We're getting through the problems.
It's working. It's working.
Congratulations, Kevin.
Thanks. I've been there before, right?
You have.
Many years. Do we have any questions about the Joyce Trust? Or does John have any comments on it?
Only if you would allow me to just say a few words.
Sure.
I just wanted to remind everybody that this first came before the village in 2014. And it's taken that long to convince the ARB that only one of the buildings was truly of any historic significance. They allowed us to take down the other one, but in grinding, and we have a lawsuit pending because we don't think that the existing building meets the standards, but we're willing to make all of that go away, which I think is really equitable and fair, given the fact that none of these structures all predate zoning, they predate the historic district, and they've been in the same family all that time, so there's nothing self-created. Back in 2014, if you take the then GFA allowances and the fact that you didn't have to put the square footage of any sort of accessory structure in with the GFA for the principal lot, the house could have been 6,349 square feet. We're asking for 5. The relief we're asking for is from relief for that section that throws the square footage of the accessory structure in with the principal structure. And we think, given the fact that we'd be getting rid of a lawsuit, we'd be preserving this building, it's taken us over almost 7 years to get to this point. None of it's been our fault or no self-created hardship. All of these things predate all the regulations. Going to have to spend a lot of money rehabbing that building. And also it's a it's an attempt with the ARB to compromise and keep that building. So we'd ask you to grant the relief that's necessary.
The last meeting, I raised some questions about the extra square footage, but since then I've thought the matter over. I think John makes a very good point. This has been around for a long time. If they could have gotten this done 5 years ago, that we'd be here before us. So as far as I'm concerned, it's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're being forced to keep the building, which they didn't want to keep in the first place. So then to penalize them on their new house because they're making them keep the accessory structure and turn it into a guest house, it just didn't ring fair.
That's what we think.
Okay, I mean, my feeling is different. I do not think it's a penalty to have a guest house. And as far as a precedent goes, I just don't know how you say that the pool house is counted toward gross floor area. However, a house is not. And as far as how long it's taken, I'm sympathetic to that. But I think being granted a guest house, being granted a variance for a guest house in the front yard, is as far as I'm willing to go. And that the idea that a 4,000 square foot house plus a guest house somehow suffers a detriment, I'm just not there. I haven't seen the detriment yet. I haven't seen an applicant who has provided evidence that a 4,000 square foot house with a finished lower level, in other words, plus a finished lower level, plus a separate guest house is somehow suffering a detriment. It's just not in the record yet.
Well,
I understand that, but if I were to build a house, the last place I'd want to put a guest house is what, 15 feet from the road on a busy Hill Street road? I think that the detriment is that they're making you keep it, and they're making them put it in front of their property, out by the road. So that's part of my sympathetic feelings towards this application.
if I may, it's not the usual benefit. This is a compromise. It's not the greatest place for a guest house, which we're going to have to rehabilitate. And I suffer in a way the misfortune from having a little bit of knowledge on this stuff. But Mr. Guzowitz will tell you there's a significant detriment in having to try to rehabilitate a house that's from the 1890s as opposed to building anew. It's going to cost twice as much. That's a detriment. The fact that we don't want to have the guest house, but it's being forced on us in effect, and being put, it's not a great place for a guest house, 20 feet from a busy road. So, it's a good compromise, which we're willing to take because we're trying to get on with our lives. We still have the litigation pending. You're forgetting that, Mark. We have a what I think is a fairly significant and bona fide lawsuit against the ARB. One of they gave this a blue sheet based upon allegedly 2 houses being of historic significance. One of them has none. Took us 5 years to prove that. been a terrible detriment to this family, which and none of which is self-created. So, you know, it's not like I've got a guest house out towards the back of the building where you send your guests out and they're by the pool and everything. It's going to be a tough sell as it is, but we're trying to move on with our lives.
Yeah,
I happen to be in agreement with Mark entirely, and the issue around the ARB litigation that came up both at the last meeting and today really shouldn't have to be our concern. And it keeps coming up, and I don't understand why we're being asked to consider it over and over again. Because I understand that you'll let that go if we agree, but I'm not comfortable with that arrangement that keeps coming up.
It has to be your concern because the trustees have made it your concern by reason of the referral requirements between the ARB and the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Historic District. So you may not like it, but it has to be your concern.
But the quid pro quo nature of the presentation is what I'm objecting to.
Well, that's what every variance application is. The quid pro quo, that's what variance applications are all about. You weigh by the statute itself, you weigh the detriment and benefit, you weigh the impact on the environment, on the neighborhood, no opposition.
Not on
I think
other pending litigation.
you've totally misread your directive under the state code and the village code then, because that's exactly.
No, I think the quid pro quo that Julie was objecting to was the idea of resolving an ARB dispute, a dispute with the ARB as part of the quid pro quo. We understand the balancing. And that's what I think we're doing is we are balancing. What's the detriment to the homeowner by having a 4,000 square foot house plus a lower level plus a guest house? Why is that a detriment?
And I'm responding directly to you. You just don't want to hear it, either two of you. That's exactly what the statutory framework is for. Because in these cases, there's a referral from the ARB to the zoning board. So like it or not, in the wisdom of the trustees with the statutory scheme, you're in it.
And to clarify to the question of the balancing is benefit to the applicant versus detriment to the health and safety of the welfare of the neighborhood, not so much the detriment to the applicant. It's the benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the neighborhood and community.
Okay.
And you've had absolutely no negative testimony on this. And that's something that you have to take into consideration. So says the appellate division in a case that I litigated over in Shelter Island. Because this has been in numerous hearings before. The only neighborhood position has been the McLaughlin to the west, which has been very supportive of the application, and the other homeowner to the east, which has said they're in full support as long as the whatever you want to call it, the guest house stayed in the same east-west axis, which is where we've left it. So really you have, to the extent that you're charged by the statute and the village code with weighing things, the only evidence that you have is what we've put in and what the neighbors have put in, and there's no evidence of any detriment.
Well, no, we have the presumption that a regulation passed by the trustees has benefit to the community. In other words, the trustees over many years have continued to limit the gross floor area of residences. And the trustees have passed regulations recently saying that pool houses are included in the gross floor area. I would imagine that the reason why they did that, or I would highlight that the reason why they did that was because they thought that that was a tremendous benefit to the community in general. And now we're trying to say, well, there's a reason to vary from that regulation. And, I'm just not convinced that there's enough of a reason in this particular case to vary from that regulation. I don't have here a homeowner who's saying that for some reason they need more than 4,000 square feet.
Mark, if that was your rationale as a reason as to not to grant a variance, you would never grant a variance, i.e. that the trustees passed a law said this is the way they wanted things. Because that
Well, no. Actually, in this case, we're granting a couple of variances. We're granting a front yard variance, I believe.
it's there already. Actually, we're reducing the degree of nonconformity.
Okay, but
Back, aren't you?
aren't we, David, are we not agreeing to a front yard variance in this case?
Yes, so there's 2 front yards. Technically, there are variances requested and required for the structure because it's being changed from a principal to an accessory.
Right. And it's within the front yard setback. In other words, it's not only in the front yard, but it's also within the front yard setback.
Right now, it's at 0 feet. It will be moved back to, I believe it's 20 feet from the property line.
That's
Right, but it's a variance.
It doesn't matter. That's in most municipalities, that you don't even need a variance because it's a reducing degree of a nonconformity along a pre-existing nonconforming setback. I've yet to see any case where when you're moving something to a more conforming location, anybody does anything other than smile on that. You don't have the burden. You have the burden once I've demonstrated the detriment versus the benefit and the detriment. You have the burden. You just can't rely upon the statutory scheme for conforming regulations.
So what's the benefit to the homeowner?
You have the burden now, Mark.
So what's the benefit to the homeowner? Bigger is better?
No, that's not the case. The fact
I'm asking you, what's the benefit to the homeowner?
Benefit to the homeowner is that what we're doing is we're resolving a case against the Architectural Review Board, which the statute makes you, whether or not you like it or not, a part of that attempted resolution. Read the statute. But
I'm asking, when you say that there's a benefit to the homeowner to have this variance so that they can build a 5,000 square foot house instead of a 4,000 square foot house.
That's an oversimplified.
Well,
I'll tell you
inviting you to
I already did.
Evidence why there's a benefit to the homeowner.
I already did. You don't accept it. You disagree.
John, I have a question for you. If the ARB had were out of the picture and the landowner was able to tear down the building that was there, both buildings, so they just had a blank lot now, what size house would they be able to build today?
I think it's what we're building now. It would be, give me 1 second. Yeah, just shy of 6,000. Don't hold me to that, but just shy of 6,000.
Okay, so the ARB made a stipulation that they couldn't tear down both buildings. They had to keep this building. They had to renovate it. They had to make it into a guest cottage. And then zoning says now you can only have a 4,000 square foot house instead of a 6,000 square foot house.
Yep.
So I think now that your client is asking for 5,000, it's sort of like a compromise. You're not asking for the full 6,000. You're asking sort of half of what you would have been able to build if you were able to tear down both buildings.
And I'm not sure those are the facts we have.
I don't have a problem.
This is where it gets very frustrating as a lawyer trying to do the right thing by everything. I've gone to great lengths to convince my client to drop the lawsuit against the Architectural Review Board. I don't know why anyone is poo-pooing that, because that's significant, because what you would end up with if we prevail on that lawsuit is everything gone, okay? And the fact that you don't want to become part of that discussion is really sort of too bad, because the trustees have made you part of that discussion by the referral.
We're agreeing to be part of that discussion.
No. There was, I don't know why we're part of this. I don't know why settling.
No. We didn't understand why that's part of our balancing act, that it resolves controversy in the ARB.
Well, because it's referred to you. And if the client had its druthers, again, this client who all of this stuff existed before any historic preservation law, we think neither one of these parcels, okay, is subject, neither one of these properties is subject to historic preservation. They admittedly dropped the ball on the one, which is why we tore it down, the old Bartlett tree building. If we had our druthers, we'd just build one single family residence as opposed to having to spend twice the money to rehabilitate a guest house 20 feet from the property line. Why anyone isn't sympathetic to that and is taking
it is being sympathetic to it, but John, you're overstating the argument. I mean, the idea that well, every house that's historic predates the classification of it being historic. That's the nature.
No, I'm not. No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying then, Mark. You're totally misunderstanding what I'm saying. If you buy a house aware of the fact that it's subject to the historic designation, that's significantly different than if the house is in your family or the structure is in your family and this set of regulations is laid on you. Thus, by law, it's not a self-created hardship.
No, that's it. Listen, I'm sympathetic to that argument, but it opens the door to everybody who bought their house prior to their classification of it being an historic house. I think that's what I meant by overstating it.
Your suggestion that this is of some presidential value doesn't hold.
You just said that anybody who owned the house at the time of the classification might be exempt from the classification.
No, that's not, Mark. That's not what I said. I didn't say if you have a single family residence, okay, and you don't have, that's all you have. What presidential value would this be? This is two commercial structures, one of which was inappropriately and illegally marked by the village's own admission as a historic structure. And then another one where there's a pending lawsuit. This is hardly presidential. Where would you find the precedent for this? I didn't say.
I didn't find the precedent. I thought you were suggesting that if you had ownership of a structure at the time that it was classified as historic, but you had owned it prior to that classification, that you might have an argument that you shouldn't be subject to that classification. And that's what I was reacting.
Mark, you have to listen. I speak very specifically, okay? What I said was it removes any argument that this hardship is self-created, because it's not. Because the Platt/Joyce family owned the property in 1989, 1990, before this historic stuff was laid in. So there's no self-created hardship here.
If this application was the fault of the homeowner, I'd be inclined to go along with some of those, but it's not the fault of the homeowner. It should have been settled years ago. The fact that it got hung up by another village board besides ours and besides the village board, that's a factor in the way I think. It's a big factor.
As a matter of fact, under the Becoit line of cases, okay, in court, I would be able to argue that the village screwed this around so long that they should be required as a matter of law to use the law, the previous law. In that Becoit case, the municipality screwed the homeowner around for 3 years. This is since 2014. You got to be aware of this stuff. There's a lot of layers here that suggest that what we're asking for as a compromise, which is going to cost us more money than if we just built a house of the conforming size, as opposed to building what we want, plus retrofitting this ancient house. There's a lot of stuff here that suggests that this is more than fair. And I challenge anyone to tell me what the detriment to anyone in the neighborhood is. And that's probably the most significant factor that you're supposed to look at.
Oh, okay.
The only neighborhood input has been supportive. You got to look at these things.
That's from the real estate agent to the west, right?
Yes, McLaughlin to the west, and then the family to the east and the northeast that came in with their representative and said they're in full support of this application. The only thing is they didn't want the structure moved further to the east. So we moved it 20 feet back, but not to the east.
So it's going to stay in the same relative spot, east and west.
Exactly.
North, south, where it's going to be moved back about 20 feet. Okay.
Yes.
I get it. Anybody else have anything to say?
No, just a few minor clarifications. The Maximum gross floor area permitted is 5,540. So they're asking for relief of 864 square feet. And the changes in the code in regards to the calculation of that, I believe the last one occurred in 2017, as to the point of when this changed contemporaneously or in relation to when the application was originally requesting to knock that building down. So those, I think that's in the last letter as well from Mr. Bennett's office. Those numbers changed while they were going through the process with the ARB.
David, this is summed all up in our letter. Accordingly, the maximum gross, if you take the reduction of GFA as well as the requirement to add GFA from an accessory structure to the principal structure, none of which were there in 2014, the maximum gross floor area for principal residence on this property has been effectively reduced from 6,349 square feet to 4,139, a reduction of 2,210 square feet since the time that the Joyce Platt family filed the application. And if you look at the Becoit case, the Court of Appeals has said you can't penalize someone like that. And I don't want to have to make these arguments. I want someone to respect, I want this board to respect the arguments, be sympathetic to the, and let us proceed. I don't want to have to make these arguments in court. I don't think that's fair. That's an additional burden on the applicant. Trying to settle this, trying to settle one lawsuit and prevent another one.
Any other comments?
No, my position is still the same.
So is mine. Mark?
My position is the same. I think the GFA should be, of the guest house should be counted.
Okay.
And I agree with Mark.
So we're 2-2.
Yep.
That's one of the disadvantages of not having an odd number of people.
You have to wait. You have to wait until someone's
I'm not saying
appointed.
we don't have odd people, we don't have an odd number of people.
You have to wait until someone's appointed.
Right. Well, I don't think John Bennett wants us to wait that long. Do you?
Well, let's just be very honest. A 2-2 under the New York State law is a denial. So I bring an Article 78 proceeding, and I don't think that's fair to make me do that.
No.
So I'm more than happy to wait until somebody else is appointed, assuming that happens in a couple of months.
I don't know how soon that's going to be.
No, I mean, we can adjourn this for that purpose and try and get some idea on that.
Why don't you kick it over for a month, I guess?
That makes sense. Okay. You want us to close it for decision or to adjourn it for all purposes?
David?
You want to
I
adjourn it
think
for
the possibility that another member is going to be appointed, I have no idea. You might want to keep it over for all purposes, I guess.
That would be my recommendation. The member would have the new member would go through the videos and whatnot of these meetings, the minutes and whatnot. So I believe we still want to have another discussion with that new member at the time that they are appointed and have a chance to review the material.
And I'll make a motion that we hold application number 3045 over, adjourned for all purposes.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed 4-0. 3058, the Lake Agawam Conservancy, First Neck Lane. I'd like to hear from Chick on this one because I didn't get his latest emails.
Okay, Kevin, I can explain that. David, did you want to say something first?
Yes, Chick, if you could just let Antoinette know who from Rue she's supposed to be letting into the meeting.
Yes, I know an invitation went to Charlie McGuckin. Antoinette, is he in the queue?
He is, and I just moved him over. He should be coming any second. Here he is.
Hi, Charlie. You're on mute.
I'll get him. Hold on one second. Okay, he has access. Anybody else, Chick? I have other
I
people.
was going to ask Charlie that. Is there anyone else that you have attending, Charlie?
No, just myself from Rue.
Okay.
Okay. All right, good. Kevin, would you like me to
Yes,
give
please.
you an
Yeah.
overview?
Yeah.
Well, first, hi, everybody. This is fantastic that we're doing this remotely. Hope everybody's well. And thanks to Antoinette for pulling this together. So this is a pending project. We had hoped to have a decision in March, but the meeting was held. It's a small but important project for Lake Agawam. It's proposed by the Lake Agawam Conservancy. It is consistent with the 2007 NPV Comprehensive Plan for Lake Agawam. It's also recognized in the harmful algal bloom study that's being done in cooperation with the town, the village, the state, and a number of entities, including the Lake Agawam Conservancy. You will all remember that we voted to approve a project for removal of water lilies in October. It was October 24th. It was based on the application that Rue and Charlie Group made to the village, and there was a supporting report dated October 24th. Since that time, it was too late in the season and the work was not completed in the fall as was hoped. And the applicant came and requested that this be extended to have the ability to remove water lilies through the end of April. So that is what is pending. At this time, 2 letters have been received. I believe Antoinette has them. I did try and send them to the board members. One is a letter from Dr. Gobler indicating support for the project and the importance of it. That's dated April 22nd. And one is a letter from the Lake Agawam Conservancy dated April 24th, also in support of the project. And there was a question about jurisdiction, but it's quite clear that the village has jurisdiction with regard to upland areas. And if needed, David can explain any other jurisdictional questions. So at this time, there have been 3 amendments to the permit that was issued October 24th. The first was to remove the property owner at 472 First Neck Lane. That was at the request of the Conservancy. The second was to extend the permit to April 30th. That would allow limited removal and whatever can be done up until the end of the month, which is fast approaching. So as I said, we had hoped to have this on for March, and it's on for today. So there still is some time to get some work done. And it is important to remove biomass from Lake Agawam. It's a first step of many that will be taking place to help the water quality of Lake Agawam. And the third item is that I had a discussion with Charlie regarding the diffusers. And to place them properly, there was a request to remove a limited amount of water lily roots in the specific area of the diffusers. So you'll notice that condition 3 was added, and the other conditions that were included before have dropped down, but they're all the same. Those are the only 3 amendments. I think we probably want to hear from Charlie if there's anything else that he would like to add. And I will just say that we have a negative declaration, which can be updated if you choose to go ahead today. And you have a draft permit with 3 changes. Otherwise, it's identical to what was approved in October. Is that a good summary, Kevin?
Sounds good to me.
Hi, this is Charlie. Thank you, Chick. Just to add to that, we would like to do a limited removal this week through Thursday, which is the permit limit, April 30th. It will, even a limited amount of removal primarily in the area of the proposed diffusers, will help distribute the air. In addition, these diffusers they work from the bottom up, so they're placed at or near the bottom of the lake, and they're more effective than surface aerators because they give oxygen down at the bottom where the lake needs more oxygen. And so it has multiple benefits for the ecology, for the fish, to reduce the blue-green algae, the toxic algae. And we just want to do what we can right now to help these diffusers function throughout the summer when they're really critical. And the diffusers have been ordered by the Conservancy, and those will be installed likely later in May when they arrive. So yeah, this work is really just to do a little bit of removal right now this week while we still have time under the permit.
I have a question for you, Charlie, on the diffusers. Do they just have one like air outlet, or are they like a bubble system for a boat, you know, that where you're going to have tubes running out and around to diffuse the air into the water?
Each one of these has 6 different hoses, so they'll be run to 6 different diffusers, sort of laid in a line on the lake bottom. So,
are you going to want the root mass removed wherever these diffuser pipes are run?
Well, ideally, just to be able to allow the diffuser tubes to sit flat on the bottom. So the idea will be, yeah, to sort of create a line of these, and then the tubes will run along that line.
So how big an area will that be for each diffuser? Because I'm trying to get a handle on how much root mass that you're removing. You know, like, is it going to be 50 square feet, 100 square feet? Do you have an idea?
Well, each diffuser, the diffusers themselves are fairly small. They're only about 1 foot by 1 foot size. The hoses are 3/4 inch diameter, so even laying 6 along side by side is only going to take up a few feet of width. So it's really more of a linear footage of 100 feet for each one of these sets of 6, something like that, or 150 feet. So we're not talking about acres and acres of area. It's going to be more limited to maybe a path of 10 feet, 20 feet wide, and 100 feet or so long for each one. As compared to the overall size of the area of plants is 2.5 acres. So this removal will be fairly limited to a small percentage at this time, and then in the fall we had proposed to do a more extensive removal with a bigger harvesting machine to also remove the seasonal algae that could be accumulating in the plants themselves. So it would be sort of a multiple benefit, and that would be a much larger, 90% of the area removal. This being much more limited for this week.
And maybe I could just add in to what Charlie said. These diffusers are very similar to the ones that are already in operation by the highway superintendent. And you can see, if you look at the lake almost any time, you'll see that small area of bubbles diffusing up to the surface. It's similar to that. Most of those diffusers are in central parts of the lake that are not as stagnant. What's happened in the southwest part of the lake is it has become very much choked with the water lilies. So the idea is to circulate water and to have the removals that are provided for in the permit. And it's also to help control the accumulation of blue-green or harmful algae in those areas of the lake where the water is stagnated because of the water lilies. So it's, as I said, similar to what's being done, but it's in an area that is more stagnant because of the water lily growth.
Do we have any comments from the board on this? We passed this once. had no objections at the time. Now,
I'm fine with it.
if this gets extended to April 30th, that's coming up this week. Let's still allow them to do this in the fall. And you still
That's
do-
correct.
They
That was
can, they
the
can
intent.
install the aerators at any time,
They don't have
and
to
then come,
again.
but they can't remove the mass lilies until the fall if they don't get it, whatever they don't get done by April 31st.
They don't
They
have to,
can't, they'd have to wait until the fall again to do a mass removal of the lilies.
they can do that under this permission. They don't have to come back to us again.
There is a
Correct.
provision, if there is removal done, there is a provision to submit something to the zoning board. I believe it's by September 1st. And in this case, it would just be a very brief account of what's been done in the spring. And those provisions are part of the permit. And then the zoning board would look at this in October prior to the removal that can occur anytime up until the following year of April 30th, 2020. So these are consistent with the conditions from the prior permit, and I have gone over those with Charlie.
But yet, at this time, we are planning that we would likely do a more significant removal in the fall, sometime after October 1st, soon after October 1st, because we can't do it in the winter with freezing conditions. So we'd want to do it in that fall period. And yeah, we will be documenting what we did this spring. I believe I checked it, also submit to you before September 1.
Correct.
Preferably attend the meeting in September and have the go-ahead in October.
It's really just an update. I did note that the trustees permit seems to me as though it expires, but the village permit was really intended to be very flexible, and it's provided for a 5-year period, but it's subject to this revisit before each fall removal season. So I think it's structured very well to monitor and understand what's been done previously and how best to proceed. Certainly the intent is to remove biomass and reduce the stagnation in that part of the lake, and this can certainly accommodate that.
Do you have any other comments from the board? Any advice from our lawyer?
No, Chick does a very thorough job.
So we need a motion here. A motion to approve this application, right? That's what we need.
Correct.
That's correct. It's pending, it's been submitted and ready for your decision.
I move we approve the application of case number 3058, Lake Agawam Conservancy.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Very good.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Charlie,
Chick.
good luck. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And there is a notification when work is to be done. Just be mindful of the conditions of the permit. But thank you very much. I'll also add that Charlie's client, the Lake Agawam Conservancy, got their 501c3 approved last week. And they are going to be a big factor in the cleaning up of Lake Agawam. So I think this is a great first step, and I thank everyone for their involvement.
Very good.
Thank you.
That brings us up to case number 3063.
Take care.
3063, Richard de la Quila, 227 Halsey Street. The one about the garage / pool house. They need a variance from one of the lots, either the north lot line or the west one, I'm not sure which.
And Antoinette, I believe Mr. De La Quila is there. If you could let him in.
I don't see it. I see just Rich. Would that be who it is?
Probably.
I would
Could
hazard the guess probably.
Rich, can you raise your hand if you're De La Quila? Okay, I got him.
Okay.
Okay, here we come. And you guys, hold on, give me a time and you'll be all set.
I'm here, thank you.
Rich, did you want? Oh, we got him.
Very
Okay.
good. There he
There
is.
you go. Sorry, I haven't had a haircut either. hence the hat.
That's why I'm wearing my hat.
Antoinette, I don't know if you show Ryan Salvatore on there, but Ryan is dialed in, I believe.
Let me see. Oh, he's raising his hand. Got him. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether there'd be any questions or not, so just had him join because some of this stuff he can probably be more helpful than me.
This is garage slash pool house. Is that correct?
I believe it was
Correct.
and the FAR, right?
Correct.
And you need relief from which lot line? North or west?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, from which lot line do you need relief?
With regard to the garage, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's the south lot line, the setback.
South. Okay. Now the driveway that's off of Halsey Street, that's going to go directly back toward the garage, or you have to make that turn?
So the driveway is the existing driveway now.
Right.
And the request for the relief on the setback was to do our best to try to, I don't know if you have the schematic in front of you, but to try and do our best to align the garage with the existing driveway and to allow for enough room for a vehicle to maneuver in and out of that garage door.
You got any comments? No? Does Ryan want to say something?
I just got connected to audio, so I may have just missed if there was a particular issue. I apologize about that.
We're just trying to review in our mind exactly what we're dealing with here. It always has to do with the garage, which is going to be partly garage and partly pool house. And what relief exactly is being asked?
Correct. And just I know one of the questions that the board discussed at the public hearing was whether or not it was going to be, the board would be in favor of the pyramid variance for the back of the garage, or to make the back of the garage have to have a gabled roof. You know, and it is the garage, it does meet the setback on that side that the pyramid requested from, but it doesn't meet the pyramid. It does need side yard from, the applicant is correct, it is the southern property line. The garage slash pool house is 5 feet from that, where 10 is required.
I think it was only a little section of the peak of the roof, and I don't think that the pyramid impacts anybody back there. So I don't know if it's really, you know, worth objecting to a pyramid request that nothing's going to live in that space. It doesn't affect any of the neighbors. You know, it could be as it is.
It's not on the side of the garage that faces the lot line, on the other side.
That's correct. It's on the rear. The pyramid would be with regard to the rear, which is the west lot line. And I think I mentioned one of the past hearings, we've got screening in there, arborvitae that we planted about 7 years ago that are now probably 25 feet tall. It's also consistent with I have two lots that back up to that section of my property, and it's consistent with what's there now on the other lots as well. I believe there's another garage that's about maybe 4 or 5 feet off of my property line that's been there for a long time with that similar architectural design. It's a pyramid roof, but no one can see it, and no one's living back there.
Do you have any other comments? How about our attorney? Anything, David?
No.
What's the wish of the board?
I approve it. I would approve it.
Yeah, I think the variance for the GFA and the variance for the pyramid are fine with me.
How about you, Julia?
Fine with me.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll write that up for our next meeting.
Right.
Okay.
You want a motion on it right now?
No, we'll stick to the typical format discussion. I'll write it up, and then we'll vote on and approve the actual decision the next meeting.
Okay.
David, are we going to be able to have a next meeting soon? Are we going to be able to schedule the next meeting?
It'll be done, in coordination with all of yourselves, and just under the standard 3-day notice that we had to do for this one. It doesn't. We're still not doing public meetings, so that meeting, we can schedule once we coordinate a next date with everybody.
Yeah.
Well, the work session would be on the 19th of May, and the public meeting would be on the 28th.
Well, we don't have to stick to those dates. Like I said, this is a special meeting. We can, if you guys pick another date for the next meeting, at that meeting I will have this decision ready, and you could vote to approve that, which is the standard procedure that you had followed in the past.
Okay.
Yeah. It shouldn't be the gating item, but we have plenty of flexibility on our end. So we've been thinking about this for 7.5 years. So we're fine with whatever works for the board.
All you're probably here next month will be someone will move that we accept the decision and we'll approve the decision.
Right. The next meeting we schedule, you would approve the decision that I write up.
So for the time being, we're going to close this application, huh?
Yes.
I move we close application number 3063, 227 Halsey Street.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving right along here.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
Very good.
Kevin, this is Chick.
Yeah.
I don't see anything else pending for wetland matters.
Some things never change, do they?
I know. Let's be conserving of our time, and this has been a great experience. I want to wish you all well.
Wouldn't be a good meeting if you didn't leave early, Chick.
Just trying to be efficient.
I know. Thank you.
All right.
For your work.
Be well. We'll be watching emails and be in touch as needed.
Good, good.
Thank you very much.
On the application of case number 3067, Southampton Real Estate Court, 80 White Street. This is the one where they want to convert a pre-existing building that's used for business right now over to a residence. I think it's used for an office use. For the residence.
Oh, right.
And they're going to end it by taking part of the garage will now become part of the living quarters. And they have a pool, which they have a permit for. It's on the CO, so that doesn't concern us at all, I guess.
No, that's a done
It's a done
matter.
Yeah. Not sure how it happened, but it's there. It's got a CO.
Excuse me, should I be letting somebody in for this application? Or
No, it doesn't appear that it was Nicholas. I can't pronounce his last name. Alamanestianu.
Oh, yes, I know who you're talking about. He's not on. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see him.
The board have any comments on this application?
I thought we sort of looked favorably upon it.
Mhm.
You know, going from a business to a residential, and it's there were other residentials on that street. I think that street's mostly residential on that side. So, as an application, I don't see a problem with this.
I agree.
I thought we had all been very favorable towards it.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we all agreed with it.
All right.
Okay. Well, I can write that up for our next meeting and have a decision that you guys can approve at that point.
And we'll do the same thing with this application that we just did with the previous one.
Correct.
We'll close it. I move we close application 3067 Southampton Road for decision.
No second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Brings us down to the last application. 3068 JFF 160 Ox Pasture Holdings, 160 Ox Pasture.
And if, Antoinette, if you could let John Bennett back in, please.
Okay, here comes John.
Howdy.
Okay, John, you're on.
Thank you.
Refresh us on this one, John?
Well, it seemed to me that no one had a problem with it. It's 9-acre parcel, just taking over the first story of what is a long-standing accessory structure. You know, you could subdivide this thing into 3 lots. The old Lloyd Smith house, the parcel's been there forever. There's not any increase in the actual, walls of the accessory structure. It's just taking over 1,200 square feet, technically habitable.
Is this a pond that sits back in the, I guess what would be the southeast part of the property? Great Plains Road?
Southeast, exactly. Exactly.
Used to keep some of his cars in there.
I'm sorry.
He used to keep some of his cars in there.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Cars didn't go to Palm Beach. Yeah.
Property also used to be about twice the size. Even
It was like 17 acres, wasn't it? Something?
yeah, the grand old Southampton estate. Still pretty grand by any standard, but
He was a good guy.
everyone tells me that.
He was. He was.
So there's no dimensional change to the building at all. It's just work inside the building, correct?
All inside. But since it's not all technically habitable space now, we have to come to you and ask for your permission to do that.
So you're increasing the habitable space by taking away some of the garage space.
Exactly.
We've had applications like this before. The first floor garage space and turned it into living space.
You actually, on that Wambold application, let somebody go from a 570 square foot guest house to a 1,738 guest house, and that was actually increasing, the size of the physically the size of the 4 walls of the house. This is just, it's all going to be self-contained.
You have any more comments from the board?
No, I'm not having any difficulty with this.
No, we didn't have a problem with this.
How about you, Julia?
I agree. We had no difficulty with it.
Okay. How about our attorney?
No, we can, if the board likes, we can close this for a decision. I'll have that written up for our next meeting.
And we have no comments from anybody else? There's no attendees on this one? No public? Make any comments? No. So we'll do the same thing with this one that we did with the previous 2. I move that the application 3068 JF160 Oxford Holdings be called for decision.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do you have anything else to come before the board?
Do you folks have just a minute to entertain just a procedural question?
Sure.
I had a very successful full meeting before the Suffolk County Board of Review the other day, and East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals and North Haven Zoning Board of Appeals has had meetings like this. Actually, some of the participants have said, because everybody has to speak in turn, it's actually a little bit more manageable.
Civilized.
Yeah. So I would just urge you, if you could, to set up an actual hearing as quickly as possible, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, because we have a whole lot of applications that we have that are pending. The only ones we took care of today were the ones that we had to, we hate to go back to work in June, say, and have 50 applications before us.
Yeah, I would ask you to have the May meeting by Zoom. So, but that's up to you guys.
All right, John, we take your comments to heart.
Thank you.
David, keep it ready to close this meeting?
Yes.
I have a motion to close the April 27th special meeting of the Southampton Village Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. This was really good.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a good day, everybody.
You guys, can you hang on 1 second? I just got to stop the recording.
Sure.